welcome to Code Sprint B. So we just finished up with Code Sprint A, so congratulations. You all put a ton of hard work into Code Sprint A. You might be feeling a little kind of exhausted from the end of the sprint, but what I saw meeting with you is that you were starting to think in new ways. You were doing the hard work of taking your brain pre-Code Sprint and starting to think in programming terms and also think in terms of how React and JavaScript work. So we're going to keep going on that process. Code Sprint B, we're not leaving any of those tools behind. We're just adding things on top of what you've already learned. So those things that you've learned React, you've learned JavaScript, you've learned how to go through the debugging process to solve errors. All of those are going to be vitally important going forward, and the work that you put in the beginning in Code Sprint A is going to pay off big time in Code Sprint B in terms of your understanding of new concepts as we layer them in. So Code Sprint B is all about cloud storage. It's all about data. So what we're going to be doing is adding a data layer to our applications. In Code Sprint A, we kind of faked that using local storage if you did the extra credit, where we stored things kind of in the browser's cache so that if you open up a to-do app and you enter some to-dos and you close it down and come back in that same browser, you can see some data stored in local storage. But in this sprint, we're going to be learning that the sort of true way to do that is with using a piece of software called a database. So this is a specialized piece of software that is really good at storing data and retrieving data. And that's what we're going to be learning how to do. So we'll be able to, make a to-do app that, as an example, we can load up on one device and enter some to-dos, go to another one, load it up, enter some to-dos, go to a third one, and see all of that on all of those devices. So the data is going to be the persistence layer that allows us to save information across uses of our application, across devices that are using our application. It is going to be all about storing data. And we're going to be using a service called Cloud Firestore from Google to simplify bringing databases into this class. It'll make it easier for us to bring data storage and databases into our React applications. So I want to share screen for a second. So we, in Code Sprint A, made this whiteboard in the very first day of Code Sprint A, where in Code Sprint A we learned about front-end programming, and we were talking about how we're going to have these different layers that are part of our application eventually. And usually what you do is you have a client that talks to a server, which would be Code Sprint B, which can interface with the database to store data and retrieve data when it's needed. So store user accounts, store to-dos in a to-do list application, store restaurants in a Yelp clone, like all of that would be stored in the database. We're not going to learn about servers just yet, so we're going to be hooking our client directly up to our database using Firebase, using Google's Cloud Firestore. So if you're curious, you can Google Cloud Firestore and end up on the Google Docs page for Cloud Firestore, which kind of has some technical and overview information about Cloud Firestore. Specifically, it's a NoSQL database, which you'll learn about in this week's material. And it's a very flexible database with querying, real-time updates, offline support, designed to scale. We're going to revisit this when we start diving into using the database, but I want you to understand this is what we're going to be diving into. This is specifically the database service we're going to be diving into. Okay, so new class, new Canvas page. So Code Sprint A, that one, there's no new content going to be posted there. We're now moving to our data cloud storage Code Sprint B Canvas page. So new Canvas, but we're going to use the same Microsoft Teams, and this is going to be pretty much the same structure as the last course in terms of how material is posted. There'll be modules for each week. It's the same getting started and resources section, same required software. The syllabus has the same structure. So if I open up one of these, give it a second, overview of the class, and then specifically a breakdown of the grade, it's the same as we had last time. So you're going to have that kind of attendance participation grade, where we have these assignments where you're posting things in teams, sharing with each other. That's 30% of your grade. And then the rest is your weekly projects, your practice assignments, and your final project in this class. And your final project in this class is going to be taking your application from the last class and building a data layer to it. So whatever kind of application you built, you'll be figuring out what data storage that application needs. You can also start a new small scope project in the context of this class, but I would recommend thinking about ways that you can carry forward what you did in CodeSprint A into CodeSprint B. And we'll get into all the requirements for that. First week of class, we're focusing on some new JavaScript fundamentals, so we're not really diving into the final project for this class just yet. So one thing that I want to mention before we talk about this week's material is that there are a couple important learning tips that I have for you. So as upper level classmen and as grad students, some of the expectation is that you know how to learn, you know how to teach yourself. And one tip that I can give you to help you improve that, let's go to one of the videos for this week. So on all of the videos, you can watch them at 2x speed or at a quarter of the speed. So what you can do, and what I highly encourage folks to do, this is what I do when I'm learning new material, is I will watch the tutorial, or I will watch a large chunk of the tutorial, sometimes at 2x speed, or if it's very new, I'll watch it at 1x speed. I'm just going to watch and take notes first. I'm not focused on actually typing anything. I just want to make sure that I understand the concept. And once you do that, you can come back and follow along, restart the video, and maybe the second time around you watch it at 2x speed and you are actually trying to code what I code in the video. And this process allows you to get the big picture, the concepts, and then also get the code. And it sounds like it's going to be more work by watching the video twice like this, but actually it ends up being less work because the errors that you hit when you're trying to code, when you have that roadmap in your head, that big picture of what you're trying to do, you're able to debug those errors more effectively. If you don't have that roadmap in your head and you hit an error, your gut response is probably just to compare your code with what I wrote in the video and just do a hunt for typos, which is not actually you engaging with the material deeply. So you're not actually learning a ton by doing that debugging. But if instead you watch the whole thing through, or maybe for some long videos, you break it up into 30-minute chunks, 20-minute chunks, where you try and get the big picture, and then without coding, you take some notes, and then you come back and start over and follow it with coding. When you code that second time through, you are more able to follow the big picture, and those errors that you hit, rather than just doing this comparison with my code and your code, you can actually engage with the topics and engage with the errors you're getting to try to debug using that roadmap that you've got in your head, using those concepts that you've now got in your head. Okay, so now let's talk about this week. So let me close a few of these. And this week we have same structure, week 1 here, where we're going to have a link to our teams meeting on Friday. That's optional, but highly encourage you to check it out. We have an overview and then a couple of assignments for this week. So the week 1 overview, it's going to have this video that you're watching right now. It'll have the to-dos for this week. And your assignments for this week are these 3. There's a assignment reviewing some JavaScript fundamentals that we need to be able to interact with databases. There's a conceptual introduction to databases, and then there is a project feedback participation assignment for this week. One thing I should note is that because this is a new class, CodeSprint A is done. Your grades are going to be entered for CodeSprint A. CodeSprint B is a fresh slate. So we're starting over in terms of the canvas. We're starting over in terms of the grades. So if you had trouble getting started last semester, but you hit your stride at the end and you're not super satisfied with how you end up performing in the class, this is a new chance for you to start over and keep on track from week 1, which in a 5-week class is incredibly important. Okay, so let me give you a high-level preview of this week. So week 1, what I'm going to teach you how to do in this is how to interact with an API, interact with the Pokemon API. And we talk about what an API is and why this matters, but this is like the building blocks for us to be able to actually talk to a database and bring a database into our React applications. This is specifically a vanilla JavaScript project. There's no React here because the concepts that we learn apply to React, but it's really helpful to focus on them without the distraction of using React. So that's what you're doing here. And this one has an important note that there's more than just following along with this video this time. So down here, in terms of what you need to submit, there are a couple of challenges. So you're going to follow along with the video, and then you're going to make a couple of extensions to that project to prove to me that you've mastered those concepts from the video. So in terms of submitting, you get a ton of points for the homework assignment here for just following along with the video. And then you also get points for these extensions that you make. And as you're going along, any topic that you are feeling shaky on, like arrays, objects, dot notation, promises, things from the video or things from last code sprint, you should be looking up additional resources and tutorials to review those concepts. I'm going to kind of assume going forward that these fundamentals you've got covered. We will review some of them as we go, like here in this video, we review functions and we go a little bit deeper into functions. But those fundamentals of JavaScript, the better you know those, the better everything else will make sense, or the more everything else will make sense. So databases will make more sense, React will make more sense, all the stuff we do in this video with promises will make more sense. So those fundamentals are really, really important. Okay, so you're going to do that one. There's a little bit less material this week in terms of coding. It's a little bit lighter, but you also have this synthesis challenge where you have to show me a few extra extensions along with your following along. There is a page here for database introduction. So I'm throwing a new structure at you here too for some of the conceptual information. So I've got these videos, one of them from Google and one is a nice overview of databases. You're going to watch these to pick up some of the high-level concepts of databases. We're not coding databases yet, but this will prime you for when we actually start working on databases. So they're pretty short videos, and then what you're going to do is take the quiz associated with them. So the quiz, I've got it mentioned up here. You've got a limited time to do this quiz, so take your time, and you've got all week to do the quiz. So watch the videos, take your notes on the videos, make sure you've got the concepts from the videos, and then pop open the quiz. You can refer back to the videos as needed. This quiz, even though we're calling it a quiz, it's more of like a comprehension check to make sure that you got the content from the videos. So I do not care if the way you do the quiz is you watch the videos and then you pull up the questions and you skip around the videos to try and find the relevant material to make sure you're getting it right as you're entering the quiz. I will love it if everyone in the class gets 100% on all the quizzes in this code sprint. That's excellent. So it's really a comprehension check, not really like a time pressure quiz, and it's open book, so you can refer to all of this. You can use Google. So it should be a pretty simple way for you to get points in this class and demonstrate to me that you're following along and you get the material. Last thing is that you gave folks in CodeSprint A feedback last week on their in-progress projects. This week, we're going back to that project progress channel, and you're giving 2 different peers feedback. So now they're done, those projects are done, so you're getting to see a different stage of that project, and we're also getting to celebrate each other's achievements. We're getting to see what cool things everyone was able to make and pull off in CodeSprint A and give them some feedback and encouragement as we head into CodeSprint B and we start thinking about taking these applications forward. Okay, so that's all from me for this week. As always, go through the material early, ask questions throughout the week. I highly encourage you to check out the optional class meeting on Friday and reach out if you have questions. See you next week.